Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
This is an unofficial public service announcement. Hanger is real, and when you can identify and address it, you can probably avoid catastrophe. That is the theme for our podcast today here on the Bible for Busy People. I'm Jen, and recently my family went to an aquarium together, and it resulted in a total meltdown for my toddler. It's so hard when this happens, especially in public. Moms know, you just end up at the end of your rope. This has happened many times in the past, only this time I could identify it pretty much right away. It was time to go to the car and get a snack. When I tell you that the mood quickly and effectively turned around, I mean it. We were able to go back to the aquarium, rested and relaxed, and we actually enjoyed it. As a mom, I've learned the lesson from experience that usually meltdowns are not prompted by a child's inner rebellion, but rather some other factor. It could be tiredness, a disrupted routine, sickness, pain, or hunger. And when an empty stomach affects your mood to the point that you're losing your temper, we like to call it hanger. In today's story of someone who was prompted to action by faith, we have Abigail, a woman who was in a difficult position. She was married to a cruel, foolish husband. We don't know how he treated her or what his regular life was like, although we do know that in this story he gets fully drunk, both on alcohol and on his own pride. Let's read in 1 Samuel chapter 25. Now, this is something you can go back and read, but basically David is in the territory of Nabal, who owns a really large amount of sheep and goats, and he's very wealthy, and David had spent time near them, and he and his men had treated Nabal's men very respectfully and had protected them and hadn't messed with them. And so David sends a message to Nabal saying, can you provide anything for us? It's a festive time. Is there anything you can send us basically to eat? And Nabal insults the servants and says, why should I give my food to you? David's response was to strap on swords and to go after Nabal. In verse 14, it says, one of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day, they were a wall around us the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him. Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, go on ahead, I'll follow you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there was David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, it's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my lord sent. And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed, and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal. And let this gift, which your servant has brought to my lord, be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. Interesting that she notes the way that he killed Goliath in battle. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant. David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." So David accepts what she has to offer him. Abigail goes back home. Nabal is drunk and in high spirits, so she doesn't tell him anything until the next day, and she tells him, and the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. So David hears this, and he reaches out to Abigail, and it's not exactly a love story, but he asks her to marry him. So she ends up hopefully in a better position than when she started. Now, taking it from the top, hopefully you'll go back and read all this, but Nabal was wealthy and he had all he needed and more, but he was rude, arrogant, and mean. Abigail was beautiful and smart, and I'm sure she was beyond frustrated by her husband's foolishness. Here's where the hanger comes in. David's first response to Nabal's rudeness was to destroy his whole household. I mean, Nabal was rude and all. David was disrespected, but that seems a bit extreme. Something I find interesting about this story is that Abigail had a very unique relationship with her servants. They come to her for help, and they're not afraid to speak frankly with her. Clearly, they don't waste time trying to appease Nabal. I get the sense that Abigail ran things, and she ran things wisely, and they took notice. She reminds me of the concept of the Proverbs 31 woman, a wife who runs her household and looks after the details with grace and strength. So yes, she's prompted by faith, and technically she's motivated by this destruction that's coming, but she does decide on her own to face David head on. She organizes snacks, I'm telling you, hanger, and she goes out to meet a bloodthirsty, angry man who's kind of lost touch with reality. Another thing we talked about in the Women in the Bible class I took was that violence begets violence. It continues to increase and it doesn't solve anything. Often the violence started in the scriptures is started by men, but not always. See Jezebel and also another woman that we will look at this week. But at the end of the day, Abigail is saving her household and David by ultimately calling David to a higher standard, not to sin against God with this bloodshed. David recognizes that wisdom and steps down from what he was going to do. Nabal recognizes his folly and literally drops dead. And then Abigail becomes the king's wife. Was that a good thing? I don't know. David had his own chaos going on in the palace. I hope for her that it was a much better situation than where she had been. All in all, Abigail had the discernment and integrity and quick wits to be able to handle two hotheads and save her family. Who knows what would have happened if David had followed through on his threat? How do we cultivate that kind of calm and cool discernment? We don't see Abigail's personal day-to-day life, but I feel confident she was cultivating her faith in ways that no one could see in her own personal prayer and practices with God. How are your personal prayer and spiritual practices going with God? I guarantee that those things, when practiced regularly, are setting you up to be able to take bold action where it's needed. Let's chat some more tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.